Hello, and welcome back to the podcast where you are invited for lighthearted conversations about things that matter as you seek to live your most meaningful, beautiful, and joyful life. I'm your host, Dr. Edie Wadsworth, and I hope you enjoy your stay here at the House of Joy. Well, hi, dear ones. Welcome back to the podcast. You are in for a treat today. Miss Edie is spilling the tea all about her hormones. Let's do a little series, y'all, on navigating perimenopause and menopause. I would say that this is the second most requested topic after relationships with adult kids. And I'm in the throes of it. So this is going to be quite a little unfiltered discussion about where I currently am, my journey of how I got here, and this is probably going to be 2 or 3 episodes. What I recommend for you to be able to navigate this season in the best way so that you can feel your best in what can feel like quite a wild ride, some chaotic times over here when the hormones are crazy. So, I will say that recently, well, not just recently, this very week, this is why this is very fresh on my mind. This week, and let's just pretend, by the way, I have my morning coffee. I'm actually getting ready to fly to Portland to meet my 3rd grandbaby, you guys. I can hardly wait to meet this baby girl. So I'm sitting here with my coffee that's been reheated like 5 times. And let's just pretend like we're at a coffee shop and we're chatting about hormones. So, if we do have any male listeners, you may want to tune out for this one. This is not for you. I know we have a few dedicated guys, but I had blood work this week because I have known for probably 2 months that things weren't quite right. And I'm one of those people that I really love to deal with root cause. So I like to take a lot of supplements. I like to work on my nutrition. I like to work on my movement. And so I was just, as I do, because I am a physician. So I do know a lot about the subject, but that has been a little bit of an obstacle for me because sometimes it keeps me from seeking help with things when I need to. And I have a dear friend who is a functional medicine doctor. And so, anyways, I went to see her, told her what was going on. I just was like, I know my hormones are jacked. It's happened in the last couple of months. I have been under more stress, and I am a person who's prone to like adrenal fatigue. And we'll talk about when we get into the actual hormones why that really matters when you're in the perimenopause slash menopause phase. So I went and got some blood work, and I went to see her on Wednesday. And when she looked at my blood work, she said, "This mindset work you do must be really powerful because the fact that you're functioning as well as you are with these hormones is kind of a miracle." And I was like, you know how when you hear something that like confirms what you already knew. I like just took like a deep breath. I'm like, oh, I knew they were screwed up. And I was kind of sad about that, but I was also like, I'm so glad I'm here. I think I'm finally ready to address this outside of supplements and weight training and all of the nutrition and all of the things that I've been doing for the past few years. So, drum roll, everyone. Miss Edie is getting ready to go on some bioidentical compounded hormones. So, I just wanted to kind of walk you through it because I know a lot of you are going through the same thing, and it can be difficult to navigate. And it can be especially difficult to navigate if you don't have somebody to work with like I do, because um I and she's been on our podcast, so you could go listen to the podcast that she was on. We'll link it below. But Dr. Jana Bunzik lives in my town. Cool story, you guys. Like 20 years ago, or however long it was ago, not that long, however long it was ago that I gave up my medical practice, she took my practice over, and she's been my doctor. And so it's a cool story. We have so much love and mutual respect for each other. It's actually one of our most downloaded podcasts. So maybe as part of this series, I'll have her come back on and talk about her perspective around it. And, she's very kind to me because I can be, it's not stubborn. It's just that I have been a little resistant to going on something, and I'm realizing that I should have been amenable to that sooner. Although I will say, this is the first time where my hormones were clearly like, girl, you need some bioidentical hormones. So, good news is we're picking those up today before we head out of town. And I'm really excited about it. I am going on some progesterone troches, which are like dissolve under the tongue, like by mouth. I don't do real great with things that go on the skin, like a cream. Um, I have MTHFR, and I think my skin doesn't detox really well. I'm not a sweater. And so I think when I use something like on my skin, I just don't think it gets absorbed that well. So I begged her for a different form of progesterone. So I'm doing troches, which again is like an under the tongue. I'm so excited to try it. And then also I'm doing some testosterone, some intravaginal testosterone. So my estrogen was fine. So I kind of want to walk you through that and talk about kind of my early journey with this and how I got here, how I got to like 55 years of age before, before I really needed it. Although in retrospect, I probably should have gone on them sometime last year. I probably could have prevented this last little dip or, you know, because what happens is, it's very stressful for the body when you don't have, the hormones that you need. And if you're a person who tends to be like me, who tends to be high energy, who, despite all of the mindset and emotional work that I teach and that I practice, I can let myself I can sort of like hide my stress from myself and pretend like I'm fine. And if there's one regret that I have, it's that I would have just sooner been like, okay, I'm going through a difficult time. This feels stressful. Let me address it. And I'm glad that I finally did that now. So we're gonna kind of walk through all that, and I want to, share with you exactly where I am and kind of how I got here. So first of all, menopause itself, in case you didn't know this, you can't really say you're in menopause until you haven't had a period in a year. Now, I had my last period about 4 months ago. As far as I can tell, I forgot to write it down, so that's a little bit of a guess. So it makes sense that in the last couple of months, I'm like, ooh, things are not great. And I would say that I probably started through perimenopause 10 years ago. So if I look back at when my health first crashed, it was likely the start of this, you guys. So perimenopause is that period. Peri means around, that period of time around menopause. And if I had known that back then, I could have, made some of the changes that I've made in the last few years. I could have started making them way earlier. But here's the crazy thing about my own journey. 10 years ago, when I had what I would call an adrenal crash, so that's the first time where my adrenals showed signs of not doing well. And that's the glands that sit above your kidneys that basically are responsible for making your cortisol, your stress hormone. And at the time, I was living on caffeine and sugar, and your adrenal glands are really sensitive to states of high inflammation. And, eating a lot of sugar creates a lot of inflammation in your body. And because I didn't know, any better back then about how to manage myself, I was basically living on caffeine and sugar, the two things that stress out your adrenal hormones more than any other. And so I was having like my first adrenal crash. I was having likely an episode of Hashimoto's. I had so much inflammation in my body. And I think it was multifactorial. Just popping in to tell you about my new favorite brand. If you have followed my journey, you know how much I have struggled with sleep, especially in this crazy menopause season. Let's be honest, we all crave rest. I love sinking into my bed after a long day, and I believe it should feel like a sanctuary. That's exactly what Cozy Earth creates. Cozy Earth products are designed to transform your 5 to 9, the time that matters most, into the coziest sanctuary. Their bamboo sheet set, buttery soft, temperature regulating, and 5-star hotel luxurious. Because really, luxury starts where you rest. And oh my gosh, their pajamas. Y'all, they are the first thing I packed when I was packing to come to Oregon. They're breathable, soft, and the kind of cozy you never want to take off. Emmy and I are both so obsessed. Cozy Earth's Luxe bath sheets are also next level indulgence. They are oversized, ultra absorbent, and spa worthy. Wrap yourself in everyday indulgence. You just can't go wrong with anything on their site. Luxury shouldn't be out of reach. Transform your space risk-free with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty on all Cozy Earth bedding and bath products. Visit CozyEarth.com and use my exclusive code HOJ for 40% off best-selling bath sheets, towels, pajamas, and more. Your sanctuary awaits at Cozy Earth. A couple of years before that, we had lost our house to a house fire. And so I was not doing well emotionally. I didn't have the coaching tools to learn how to acknowledge my emotions and process them. So I just stuffed them down and basically asked my body to carry them around. And so it was that. I had no concept back then, like most of us do these days, of how these endocrine disruptors, these hormone disruptors that are in our food and that are in the air we breathe and that are in all the products we're using. I had no idea about that. And so that was contributing. And then I had no idea back then really about insulin resistance. And because I was living on sugar and caffeine, I was developing insulin resistance. I didn't know that I had MTHFR, which can make you a little more prone to insulin resistance and inflammation. So I had all of these things that I had no knowledge of, and I had a complete health crash. Now, thank goodness I had this health crash kind of led me into trying to figure out how to get to the root cause of it. I'm like, how did I all of a sudden at 43, 44 years of age, how did everything in my body just crash? I mean, how did I just develop thyroid problems and inflammatory problems and hormone problems and adrenal problems? I also was, quite a bit overweight back then, not sleeping well, had a lot of anxiety and depression, just in general, everyone, quite a mess. And I started, I had already given up my medical practice, but I knew that I didn't want to be one of those people because when I went and had all of this lab work done and saw a physician about this, I was offered a big pile of prescriptions. I would have been on if I would have just taken at face value. Okay, everything in my body is broken. It's somehow all unrelated. And you need these separate 10 or 11 or however many it was prescriptions. I knew it wasn't right. I'm like, no, there's got to be some kind of something underlying, like what is really going on. And so I started doing a ton of research. I started talking to my friends, and one of my friends had gotten into Young Living, and she was drinking this red drink, and she had started using essential oils, and she was using this little magical oil called Progessence Plus. And although I was skeptical of it, I was also desperate. And so I, out of an act of desperation, bought the stuff that she was telling me about, kind of hid it in my house because I was like, Stevie is going to think I have lost my ever loving mind. And just in doing a few things after a month, I started feeling a lot better. And so that was inspiring to me. I was drinking the drink. I started using Progessence Plus. I was using essential oils. I started to switch out some things in my house. I'd started to read about these endocrine disruptors, these xenoestrogens that are in our environment, and I started to feel better. And that was so inspiring that it led me down. Can I tell you the deepest rabbit hole? You guys, I gave myself in that first year, I gave myself a master's degree in natural health. I was blown away. I was already showing signs of perimenopause then, and just what I was doing with drinking the drink and switching out some things and using this oil called Progessence Plus, my periods regulated. I mean, just that much started fixing so many things in my life that I was like, oh my gosh, there's something to this. I think there is something to getting at the root cause. And thank goodness I didn't go on all those prescriptions. And I decided, like, no, it was like a wake up call. I have to get to the root of this. I have to make some changes. The other major thing that I did in those first few months is I quit drinking Diet Coke and I cut out sugar, at least most of the sugar. And I realized that because I was in adrenal crash, I had to way cut down on caffeine. So I made a lot of changes. And because I was feeling better enough, it was motivating. I'm like, okay, I think I actually have the strength now to cut down the caffeine. And I think I actually could, make these changes. And so I started learning about gut health and how that was related to Hashimoto's. And I just did a bunch of things, started to really take responsibility for my own health. I kind of realized, like, modern medicine, and I say this as someone who trained inside it, practiced in medicine for quite a while. Modern medicine is really, really good at um, emergency health. I'm so thankful we have it. It's so good at, you break your arm, you break a hip, you have a heart attack. I can think of so many reasons that I'm so very grateful for it. What it's not great, and we're seeing evidence of that all the time now, what it's not great at is keeping us healthy and well. That is something you cannot build with pharmaceuticals and surgeries. That is something that you can really only build from the inside out with the way you're dealing with your life from mindset and emotions, how you're feeding yourself, how you're moving your body, how you're dealing with your stress, and how you're sleeping. And I am so thankful that before I went on a host of medications, that I learned about it. And this deep dive into all of this revealed so many things to me. I want to do a whole episode dedicated to just all of the hormones that are at play and how they interact with each other and how specific targeted supplementation can help. So we'll do a whole episode on that. But today, kind of what I want to say is that if you are in the throes of this, you have to decide, and this is the thing that my dear friend Dr. Bunzik, like, um helped sort of, what's the word that she really confirmed for me, is that really the most powerful thing I think that I've done for myself in the past 8 years as I've been dealing with this is I have developed such a powerful mindset around my health, my body, taking responsibility. This is something that I can learn. This is something I have to take responsibility for. And the second part of that is that you can't separate all of that from what's going on in your actual real life. So at the same time, I was dealing with all of this change. We were in the process of adopting our Tom Tom and going through all the stuff that was required with that and getting him the help he needed. Um and what I was doing during that period, because I think I felt guilty that if I admit that I'm struggling here, it diminishes his struggle, and I just wanted to be there for him. And knowing all the tools that I know now, I realize, like, oh no, I can be way more healthy and help him if I'm acknowledging what's going on for me, if I'm not minimizing it, if I'm not dismissing it, if I'm not shoving it down, if I'm not pretending to be fine. You guys, this has been my mantra for like a terrible silent mantra that I've lived by for far too long, pretending to be fine. And so many times in the last few years, I've had to say, guess what? I'm not fine. Guess what? I'm really struggling. I had to say that to her a month ago when I walked into her office in tears. Like, yeah, I've been managing this on my own with lifestyle and supplements, and it's helping, but I need help. I'm not fine. And that shift has meant everything, because we feel like, oh, that's a sign of weakness or whatever. No, that's like true strength. That's like real vulnerability. That's like what really helps us connect back to ourselves and connect back to other people. And I keep having to learn this over and over again. Like, stop pretending to be fine and get the help you need. And when things are hard, it's okay to say they're hard. I had a coaching call with my coach this week, and I just cried for like literally sobbed 10 or 15 minutes on the call, admitting that there are parts of my life that are challenging and that that's okay and that I can be there for myself. And the ironic thing is, when we learn how to develop this sort of emotional resilience where we're willing to be where we are with compassion to really process the emotions we're in, it then allows us. I felt so much lighter. I was able, it's crazy because after I had that call with her, I was able to be so productive that day. I got so much done. I felt so much lighter. I felt so much more empowered in my own life. I felt like I had the bandwidth then to create the emotional experience that I wanted to create for myself. And this again has been for me something that has been a struggle, and I'm getting better and better. I will say this, I'm getting faster at being able to say like, "Okay, I'm not fine." And so now what? Now what can we do? And so getting like admitting I wasn't fine, getting some blood work, confirming like, "Girl, nobody needs to be walking around with hormones this tanked." Um, it's been such a relief. I still feel really emotional about it because I feel like, oh, I'm just expecting so much of my body. And it's really a stressful time on our bodies. And we need to be willing to give ourselves what we need and to admit when it's not great. And I think in retrospect, what I would have done in the fall, because I think the last time I had this blood work was like in early fall, and it was teetering. It was still within the normal range, but kind of teetering. I think what would have done then is said, you know what? I think I am ready to try some bioidentical hormones because I've been taking so many supplements that literally I can't take anymore. I unless you can come up with them in some kind of gummy form or chewable form, I can't swallow any more supplements. And um although I'm a huge proponent of like giving your body the building blocks that it needs, but at some point, I needed to think about getting these bioidentical hormones. I really do wish I had done it earlier. I'm not a fan, by the way. I've several people ask me this of synthetic hormones. Not a fan because those are another form of xenoestrogens. Just go read about that. XENO, xenoestrogens. Go read about that. Synthetic hormones are another form of those, and our body doesn't know how to process that well, and those can build up in our body in ways that aren't very helpful. So I am opposed to that. But there's so many pharmacies around these days that can compound bioidentical natural versions of these hormones that can really help us through this period. Now, before doing that, the things that I was doing hormone wise were I was taking, I started out years ago by taking a supplement called PD 8020, which is by Young Living, which actually bought me quite a bit of time before I had to go on anything else because that contains pregnenolone and DHEA. Pregnenolone and DHEA are precursor hormones. Some people call these the mother hormones. These are the hormones that you need in order to make estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And so I've been on some version of those for years. That's probably why I'm 55 and haven't really had to go on anything yet because I've been on those hormones, and those precursor hormones have kept my female hormones high enough that I was feeling good and had a lot of energy. But at some point, and I think what has happened to me is that, again, going through periods of time where I don't really acknowledge myself, I don't really acknowledge the stress that I might be under. I don't, what happens is then my adrenal glands, because as your estrogen decreases, more and more you depend on your adrenal glands to produce these hormones so that you can get enough estrogen. Do you see what I mean? Like, so more and more my body has been dependent on my adrenal glands um to produce this. And as you age, and especially as you enter perimenopause, your DHEA levels naturally decline. That leads to lower energy, reduced libido, some overall fatigue. Pregnenolone is the same. It's a precursor hormone produced by a lot of it produced by the adrenal glands that then produces progesterone, cortisol, estrogen. It's similar to DHEA. Its levels drop as we age. So I have been taking these hormones for quite a while. Now, about a year ago, I switched from that Young Living supplement because it was hard to measure because it was a combined supplement. And my DHEA and pregnenolone my pregnenolone started to be lower than my DHEA. So we needed to split them up. So I started taking them separately. And again, it kept my hormone levels good for quite a while. But in the last few months, I've been having a lot of trouble with sleep. A lot of I was just realizing, like, oh, okay, this is not good. And this is too stressful on my body to keep doing this. So I'm so thankful that I had those hormones and that I took those for a while. I was also using Progestins Plus a lot. And Young Living has a hormone called Lady Sclerol or Clary Sage, and those oils are not hormones, but they're essential oils that can act as hormones in your body. And so I was using quite a bit of those at night to kind of just keep my levels good. That Progestins Plus, you guys, has been game changer for me for the past 10 years. Like, I love that oil. It's just not enough now, for years. That, along with taking the PD 80/20 or pregnenolone and DHEA, that really kept me good for several years. But because, again, I haven't had a period in a few months, my levels are starting to really decline. It was just time. Like, those things have not been enough. And, it's just time to actually give my body some hormones. So I'm really excited about that. I will also say just a brief point about cholesterol, because I have I have mildly elevated cholesterol. My mom has always had mildly elevated cholesterol. I've read a lot of research and some books about how the cholesterol levels that we are told are actually too low. And you get your cholesterol level too low, especially as you age, it contributes to dementia because your brain is made of cholesterol. All your cell walls are made of cholesterol. So I've never really been concerned about cholesterol. And I definitely did not go on anything for that. I did do some natural things like chia seeds and what else is it that I put in my I'll think of it. But I put a couple of things in my protein shakes or in my smoothies to kind of help naturally lower it a little bit. But I do not want to head into my 50s and 60s with low cholesterol. I think that is way worse than having slightly elevated cholesterol. And cholesterol is the precursor to all of your hormones. So cholesterol is what makes DHEA and pregnenolone. And so we don't want to lower our cholesterol to crazy levels. And so there was a study, and I can't remember. I'll see if I can find it, that talked about that the profile for people who do really well, especially in the blue zones, is they have elevated cholesterol but normal triglycerides. So when you start to worry is if you have elevated triglycerides and elevated cholesterol, because that can be a sign that you have some insulin resistance. Elevated triglycerides doesn't come from eating fat, it comes from eating too much sugar. So you want to make sure that you're getting good healthy fats. You're not lowering your cholesterol too much because your body needs that as a precursor to make all of these hormones. And that you're avoiding sugar, not fat, if that makes sense. So I would say that those are the dietary things that have really, really helped me in this journey. And then in the next episode, I want to dive all into exactly all of the hormones. I want to tell you exactly what I've been taking, and why, and why insulin is so important, although it's never mentioned when you look up, how to manage your hormones. You never read about that. But I want to talk to you next time about how insulin and cortisol are so important in this journey of perimenopause and menopause and the things that throw it out of whack. But I will say this, if there's one thing that you can do to help yourself. It's to just shift your mindset, to just decide that. Because what happens is we get into this phase where it feels like our hormones are off and our body is changing, and we get down on ourselves and we get a little in our heads about it. And we buy into, this is so confusing, I could never figure this out. I want you to decide today that, because I can tell you this, you guys, and I know that this is going to happen in the next month or so. Before the last couple of months where I really have felt a shift in my hormones, I would have said that this year and this decade of my life, best yet, for a million reasons. I'm stronger than ever. I feel so good. Again, minus the last couple of months where I have felt a shift, and I'm going to correct that. But I will say that my 50s have been my best years by far, in better shape than ever, feeling better than ever, stronger mindset, willing to acknowledge myself and process my emotions and create the emotional experience I want. Like, that has been more valuable probably than anything. So when I walked into Jana's office and she said, whatever you're doing with your mindset, it is powerful, because you shouldn't be feeling as good as you are. And I mean, I know that. I feel that. That definitely is true. And I am so grateful that, this is something that I have really gotten good at over the last few years. Um, so I wanted to, at the end of this, just tell you that we'll do this as like a 2 or 3 part series. Next time we'll talk all about the hormones. And then if we have enough questions come through, I'll do a Q&A, because I have been front and center in this journey. I've learned so much. I have a great functional practitioner that has helped me navigate this as well. But I wanted to let you know that we are hosting a workshop in a couple of weeks called the Confidence Code. And we will teach you these skills, how to really shift your mindset in such a powerful way that even when your hormones are tanked, you can show up the way you want. You can still find a way to engage with your life and enjoy your life. We also are going to talk a lot about the emotional piece, really learning how to live in the power of your emotions. They are not a curse, they are a gift from God. And learning how to not shy away from the ones that feel hard and painful, and learning how to create the ones you want to create, a life skill that everyone needs. And this sort of, shift that we get in this menopause phase of life can really take a toll on us and really have us living with a lot of self-doubt and a lot of comparison. And I want us to get out of that. We don't need that on top of the physical changes that we're going through. So join me in the confidence code. You just head over to edwadsworthcoaching.com/code. And we would love to see you there. This workshop is like $7, you guys. 3 days, jam-packed, all kinds of life-changing, transformational teaching that will really help you in this phase of life. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Leave any questions that you have for us, you guys. You can leave them on our House of Joy Instagram. You can head over to the review section of our podcast and leave any questions there. We love it when you leave a review. We're so grateful for you. Thanks for sitting down with me for some coffee today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.